In a world where companionship is often heralded as the greatest of treasures, there stands a woman with no friend. She walks a quieter path, one marked not by the bustling chorus of social ties, but by the solemn, sacred sounds of solitude. Yet in this solitude we do not find a heart defeated, but a soul refined. Such a woman has learned a strength that is born not of company but of communion with the divine, a strength that is tested and tempered by the trials she faces alone. Strength in solitude is a profound quality, one forged not through the comfort of crowds, but in the quiet spaces of isolation. It is here that a woman learns to stand firm on her own, to draw courage from a wellspring deep within her spirit, unshaken by the noise and busyness of the outside world. Solitude grants her a unique strength, one that is tempered and tested by loneliness, yet unbreakable, because it does not depend on the shifting sands of human approval or temporary relationships. She becomes her own pillar, learning resilience as she stands in her own company, facing her thoughts, dreams, and fears with honesty and grace. In this quiet space she finds clarity that is rarely accessible amid distractions. Solitude sharpens her vision, enabling her to see the world and herself with a clearer perspective. She observes her own thoughts, desires, and weaknesses with a discerning eye, unmasking aspects of herself that might otherwise remain hidden. This clarity is invaluable. It allows her to live more intentionally, unhindered by the fog of external influences. In solitude she discerns her true goals and purposes, untainted by the expectations or judgments of others. Strength in solitude also nurtures self-reliance. Without constant feedback or encouragement from those around her, she learns to affirm herself, to make decisions based on her own moral compass and beliefs. She grows to trust her intuition and judgment, qualities that are often diluted in the presence of others' opinions. This self-reliance enables her to forge a path true to herself, confident in her choices because they are genuinely her own. Solitude teaches her that she is enough, that she holds within her the wisdom and strength to navigate life's complexities. In solitude she finds space to connect with God in a way that is pure and personal, uninterrupted by worldly concerns. Here, in the quiet of her soul, she can turn to her Creator without pretense or distraction, laying her heart bare in prayer and reflection. This closeness to God becomes her greatest comfort, a foundation of unshakable faith. She learns that, even without earthly friends, she is never truly alone, for her Maker walks beside her, guiding, sustaining, and loving her in the hidden places of her heart. With solitude comes a deepened resilience. She learns that life's storms can be weathered without the safety net of others. Her trials in solitude become tests of endurance, and with each challenge she overcomes alone, her strength grows. She becomes like a tree planted by the waters, its roots running deep, enabling it to withstand the fiercest winds. Her resilience is not a product of convenience, but a hard-won gift, nurtured in times of need when she had no one but herself to rely on. As she spends more time alone, she develops an empathy for others who are also in solitude or isolation. Having walked the path herself, she understands the unique pain and growth that accompany it. Her experiences soften her heart, allowing her to approach others with kindness and compassion rather than judgment. She becomes a quiet comfort to those around her, someone who listens without the need to interject her own experiences, someone who provides a space for others to be truly seen and heard. The freedom found in solitude is profound. Without the pressure to conform or to be acceptable to a particular social circle, she can live according to her own values and beliefs. She no longer measures herself by the standards of others, finding instead a deep contentment in her own authenticity. This freedom allows her to live with a lightness, untethered from the opinions and expectations that weigh so many down. In solitude she discovers that her worth is inherent and unchanging, independent of anyone else's approval. Her creativity flourishes in solitude, as she has the space to explore her thoughts and ideas without interruption. Solitude provides her with the gift of time to delve into her passions, her dreams, her creative pursuits. She finds joy in creating for the sake of creation, not for recognition or praise. In the silence, inspiration flows unbidden, and she becomes a vessel for the beauty and wonder that springs forth from within. Her solitude becomes not a prison but a sanctuary where her spirit is free to express itself. Strength in solitude also grants her peace. Without the constant busyness and noise that accompanies social interactions, she can find a rhythm that is steady and calm. She learns to appreciate the quiet, to find beauty in stillness, and to rest without guilt. Her life becomes a gentle melody rather than a chaotic symphony. This peace enables her to approach the world from a place of rest, unhurried and unbothered by the distractions that once clamored for her attention. Ultimately, solitude shapes her into a woman of depth and grace. She becomes a beacon of quiet strength, a soul untouched by the shallow currents of society's whims. Her presence is steady, rooted in a foundation that was built in silence. She radiates a strength that draws others, not because she seeks attention, but because she embodies a rare serenity and confidence. In her solitude she has found the truest version of herself, a woman refined by quiet strength, resilient faith, and an unwavering trust in the God who sustains her. Dependence on God is not simply an act of faith, but a continual posture of the heart. It requires humility, a recognition of our own limitations, and a deep trust in the strength and wisdom of our Creator. When a woman leans fully on God, she acknowledges that she does not have all the answers, nor does she possess the strength to face every challenge alone. This dependence is not a weakness, but a profound strength, as it connects her to an endless source of wisdom, love, and guidance. Through this surrender, she begins to live in a peace that is not her own, a peace that flows from knowing her life rests in God's capable hands. Learning to depend on God begins with the daily decision to invite Him into every part of her life. It is not merely in moments of crisis or need, but in the ordinary and mundane that true dependence is cultivated. She learns to seek His counsel in her decisions, to lean on His strength when she feels weak, and to rest in His peace when life feels overwhelming. Each day her reliance deepens as she brings her joys, sorrows, and questions to Him, trusting that He will guide her steps with a love that is both tender and strong. Dependence on God also means letting go of the illusion of control. So often she may believe that she must bear the full weight of her life's responsibilities and burdens. This belief is exhausting and ultimately unsustainable. By choosing to surrender her need to control, she learns to rest in the truth that God is sovereign over all things. This surrender is not easy. It requires her to set aside her pride and self-sufficiency. But as she releases control, she finds a profound freedom in knowing that her life is held by one who sees and understands far beyond her own limited vision. In her dependence, she also finds her identity affirmed. When she looks to the world or even to herself to define her worth, she may feel unsteady, constantly measuring up to shifting standards. But as she leans on God, she comes to see herself through His eyes, beloved, precious, and chosen. This identity is not based on her achievements, appearance, or approval from others. It is rooted in the unchanging love of God. Dependence on Him grounds her identity, giving her the confidence to walk in purpose and joy, regardless of the world's opinion. The strength that flows from dependence on God is unmatched. When she faces trials or moments of great difficulty, her natural strength may falter. But in these moments she finds that God's strength rises to meet her need. The Apostle Paul spoke of God's strength being made perfect in weakness, and so it is with her. As she brings her insufficiencies to God, He equips her, often surprising her with resilience and courage she did not know she possessed. Her dependence becomes her refuge, a reminder that she is not, and never was, meant to do this alone. Dependence on God transforms her perspective on challenges. When difficulties arise, the natural response may be fear, frustration, or despair. But in her dependence, she learns to view these challenges as opportunities for growth and refinement. She begins to see trials as instruments in God's hands, tools that shape her character and draw her closer to Him. This perspective does not eliminate the pain of trials, but it redeems it, infusing even the hardest moments with purpose and hope. Her dependence on God allows her to walk through the fires of life with a faith that refines rather than consumes. A heart that depends on God is also deeply grateful. In realizing that all she has comes from Him, she becomes more aware of His daily blessings. Dependence fosters gratitude because it reminds her that every good thing in her life, be it strength, provision, peace, or joy, comes not from her efforts but from God's grace. This gratitude shifts her focus from what she lacks to what she has been given. In her reliance on God, she cultivates a heart that is continually thankful, seeing His hand at work in every aspect of her life. Dependence on God draws her into a life of prayer. In seeking His guidance, she learns to communicate with Him daily, sharing her heart and listening for His voice. Prayer becomes not a duty, but a lifeline, a source of strength, wisdom, and connection to God's heart. Through prayer, she gains clarity, peace, and encouragement, knowing that God is listening to her every word. This dependence on prayer reinforces her trust as she experiences firsthand the comfort of His presence and the answers that come, often in ways she could not have anticipated. Her dependence on God becomes a testimony to others. As she lives a life marked by reliance on God, those around her see a peace and resilience that defies explanation. Her life becomes a silent witness to God's faithfulness, an invitation for others to seek the same source of strength and peace. Through her dependence, she reflects God's glory, showing that He is worthy of trust and that His strength is sufficient for every need. Her life becomes a beacon, drawing others to the same wellspring of hope she has found. Ultimately, dependence on God aligns her heart with His will. By trusting in Him, she learns to desire what He desires, to walk in obedience rather than stubborn independence. Her plans and ambitions become secondary to His purpose, and she finds a joy that comes from living within the flow of His divine plan. Dependence shapes her desires, refining them to reflect the beauty of God's own heart, giving her a life of purpose and meaning that she could never have crafted on her own. In the end, dependence on God is the foundation of true strength, wisdom, and joy. It leads her to a place where she no longer seeks to be sufficient within herself, for she knows her sufficiency lies in God alone. She walks forward with a quiet confidence, a heart at peace, and a soul firmly anchored. This dependence, rather than weakening her, becomes the greatest strength she could ever possess, for it connects her to the One who is the source of all life, love, and hope. In her reliance on God, she finds everything she needs to face life's trials, celebrate its joys, and fulfill her calling. Inner reflection is the journey inward, a path that requires stillness, honesty, and a willingness to confront both the light and shadow within us. It is not a fleeting glance, but a deep gaze into the soul, where one considers motives, choices, and desires. This introspection is an essential part of spiritual growth, for it is here that the heart communes with the deepest truths. In the quiet spaces of reflection, we come face to face with the core of who we are, our strengths, our flaws, and our yearnings. Inner reflection is a mirror that reveals not only where we are, but also where we are called to grow. This reflection involves honesty with oneself, which can be uncomfortable yet necessary. Many times we are quick to justify actions or dismiss inner conflicts, avoiding a deeper understanding of why we feel as we do. True inner reflection, however, does not allow for shallow answers. It requires us to sit with our discomfort and probe deeper, asking why we may hold certain resentments, fears, or judgments. This honesty isn't meant to bring guilt, but to foster a clear awareness. With each honest insight, we learn to hold ourselves accountable, not in condemnation, but in a way that opens the door to transformation. Inward reflection also brings an awareness of the heart's desires, some noble and others rooted in fleeting pursuits. By reflecting, we see the motivations behind our actions, learning what drives us and where our true passions lie. We begin to see if we have been led by love or by fear, by purpose or by impulse. It is in this space of reflection that we are able to realign our desires with values that carry eternal significance. By recognizing the difference between superficial wants and profound callings, we begin to let go of distractions and make room for what truly matters. This reflective process is also a practice of humility, as it asks us to recognize our limitations and the areas where we need grace. In looking inward, we encounter the edges of our understanding, realizing that there are parts of ourselves that we do not fully understand or cannot control. This humility is vital because it teaches us to be gentle with ourselves and with others. It allows us to approach life with a spirit of learning rather than knowing. Reflection, then, is not only about finding answers, but also about cultivating humility, embracing the mystery of our own becoming. Inner reflection brings healing as it unearths wounds that may have been buried beneath layers of busyness or denial. These wounds, perhaps from past relationships, failures, or disappointments, often continue to influence our lives without our conscious awareness. Reflection allows us to acknowledge these hidden pains, to sit with them, and to seek healing rather than suppression. As we confront these buried hurts, we find that healing becomes possible, and we can move forward unburdened. Reflection becomes a process of unearthing and releasing, freeing us from the weight of unresolved pain and enabling us to embrace life with a lighter heart. Through reflection, we also gain perspective on the passage of time and the journey we have undertaken. It gives us an opportunity to pause and recognize how far we have come, what we have learned, and how we have changed. In our fast-paced lives, we seldom take the time to appreciate growth. We are always focused on the next goal, the next milestone. Reflection allows us to see our lives from a distance, appreciating the wisdom gained and the resilience developed along the way. This perspective brings gratitude, reminding us that every step, whether joyful or painful, has shaped who we are. Inner reflection serves as a guide for future actions. By understanding past choices and patterns, we gain insight into how we can move forward in a way that is more aligned with our values and purpose. Reflection gives us the tools to recognize where we may have gone astray and what we can do differently. Rather than feeling trapped by past mistakes, we can view them as lessons that inform better choices in the future. This guidance is invaluable as it enables us to live with intention rather than simply reacting to circumstances. Reflection strengthens our spiritual foundation by connecting us to the divine presence within. In the stillness of introspection, we become more attuned to the quiet voice of the Spirit, the source of wisdom and peace. This connection is not always evident in the noise of daily life, but in moments of reflection it becomes clear. We begin to sense a presence greater than ourselves guiding us, reassuring us, and calling us to deeper trust. This spiritual grounding empowers us to face life's uncertainties with faith, knowing that we are not alone in our journey. Inner reflection also fosters compassion, as it reminds us of our shared humanity. When we see our own struggles, doubts, and shortcomings with clarity, we become more understanding of others. We realize that everyone carries unseen burdens, fights inner battles, and seeks the same peace that we do. Reflection softens our hearts, enabling us to extend grace to others as we have learned to extend it to ourselves. It cultivates empathy, reminding us that we are all on this journey together, each of us navigating the complexities of life as best we can. Ultimately, inner reflection is a path to self-acceptance and peace. In seeing ourselves fully, both the beauty and the brokenness, we come to a place of acceptance. This acceptance does not mean complacency, but a willingness to love ourselves as we are, even as we strive to grow. Reflection brings a profound peace, as we release the need for perfection and embrace the journey of becoming. We find rest in knowing that we are a work in progress, held in the hands of a Creator who is patiently shaping us. Through inner reflection, we come to a place of serenity, grounded in the knowledge that we are enough, loved, and continually growing in grace. Heightened empathy is a gift that allows us to deeply feel and understand the emotions, struggles, and joys of others. This profound sensitivity moves beyond simple kindness or politeness. It is a form of connection where we are able to see the world through another's eyes and feel with their heart. Empathy allows us to bridge the gap between ourselves and others, fostering a unity of spirit that is rooted in compassion and understanding. In our increasingly fast-paced and divided world, empathy stands as a powerful tool for healing and connection, binding hearts together in mutual respect and care. Empathy begins with the willingness to listen, not merely to hear words, but to truly understand the emotions behind them. This requires setting aside our own agendas, assumptions, and even judgments to create space for another person's experience. It is through attentive listening that we validate the presence of another, offering them the dignity of being seen and heard. This kind of listening is not passive. It demands our full presence, our willingness to be moved by another's story, and our readiness to offer support. When we listen with empathy, we honor the humanity in others and make them feel valued. One of the most profound effects of empathy is that it softens our own hearts. When we feel with others, we develop a gentleness that tempers our actions and responses. Empathy reminds us that each person carries burdens unseen, struggles unknown, and dreams unspoken. This realization has the power to transform us, helping us approach others with patience and kindness. Our anger, frustration, and resentment toward others often diminish when we see their pain and challenges. Empathy moves us to a place of compassion, where we become more inclined to respond with love instead of judgment. Empathy also fosters a deep sense of humility. To truly empathize requires us to recognize that we are not separate from others, but interconnected with them. This humility comes from understanding that we too have our weaknesses and struggles, and that we are not above anyone else in our own trials and failures. It dismantles the false superiority we may carry and allows us to see ourselves in others. In humility, empathy breaks down barriers of pride and ego, teaching us that we are all equal in our human experience, bound by our shared need for understanding and grace. Moreover, empathy strengthens relationships by building trust and fostering open communication. When others feel that we understand and care about their feelings, they are more likely to open up, allowing for deeper and more meaningful connections. Empathy creates a safe space where vulnerability is welcomed, not feared. This trust is the foundation of lasting relationships, as it allows people to be their true selves without fear of rejection or judgment. Through empathy, relationships become sanctuaries of acceptance and mutual support, where each person feels valued and understood. Through heightened empathy, we are moved to take action on behalf of others. Empathy is not just an emotion but a motivator. It calls us to respond to the needs of others in practical ways. Whether it's offering support to a friend in need, standing up for those who are marginalized, or simply lending a helping hand, empathy drives us toward acts of kindness and justice. When we feel with others, we are inspired to serve them, to ease their burdens, and to advocate for their well-being. Empathy turns compassion into action, transforming feelings into meaningful deeds. Empathy also expands our worldview, challenging us to step outside our own experiences and see life from diverse perspectives. Each person's life is shaped by a unique combination of culture, background, beliefs, and experiences, and empathy allows us to appreciate these differences. By engaging with others' stories, we gain a broader understanding of the world and become more open-minded and accepting. Empathy helps us break down stereotypes and prejudices. It reveals the beauty and complexity of every individual's journey. This expanded perspective enriches our own lives, making us more inclusive and compassionate in our interactions. In times of conflict, empathy serves as a bridge to reconciliation. When disagreements arise, it is easy to become defensive or dismissive, but empathy challenges us to seek understanding instead. By looking at the situation through the eyes of others, we can begin to see their motivations, fears, and hopes. This perspective doesn't mean we always agree, but it allows us to approach conflict with a heart for resolution rather than division. Empathy promotes forgiveness and peace, helping us to move beyond misunderstandings and find common ground even in difficult situations. Empathy also nurtures resilience, as it helps us to process our own emotions through the understanding of others' experiences. When we witness others enduring hardships, we are reminded that we are not alone in our struggles. This shared experience strengthens our ability to cope with our own challenges, knowing that others have faced similar trials and emerged stronger. Empathy allows us to draw strength from the courage of others and inspires us to persevere. In times of personal hardship, empathy provides a sense of solidarity, a reminder that we are part of a greater human community that supports and uplifts one another. Ultimately, heightened empathy is a pathway to love, the highest calling of the human heart. It enables us to love others as ourselves, to extend grace, kindness, and understanding in a world that often feels disconnected. Empathy moves us beyond superficial connections and into the realm of true, sacrificial love, where we seek the well-being of others, not for personal gain, but out of a genuine desire to see them flourish. In this way, empathy is not just a virtue, but a way of life, a choice to live with an open heart that embraces the joys and sorrows of others as our own. Through empathy, we fulfill the calling to love deeply, to live with purpose, and to be a source of healing in a world in need. Freedom from the need for worldly approval is a profound liberation, one that allows us to live authentically without bending to the expectations of others. This freedom is not gained easily. It requires a deep internal transformation, where we gradually release our dependence on praise, validation, or acceptance from the world around us. In the absence of this dependency, we find ourselves empowered to act from our truest convictions, not merely to gain favor, but to honor our principles and our relationship with God. This path of freedom is one of self-discovery, courage, and unwavering faith. The desire for approval is a deeply ingrained human tendency, often rooted in our need to feel valued and accepted. From childhood, we are conditioned to seek validation through achievements, appearances, or compliance with societal norms. While these pursuits may be innocent at first, over time they can consume us, dictating our actions, shaping our identities, and ultimately leading us away from our authentic selves. True freedom comes when we understand that our worth is not dependent on the opinions of others, but is defined by our Creator, who loves us unconditionally. This freedom calls us to shift our focus from earthly recognition to divine approval. Unlike human validation, which is often fleeting and conditional, God's approval is steadfast, grounded in love and truth. When we seek to please God rather than people, we align ourselves with eternal values, knowing that our purpose is not to conform to the world, but to live according to the truth. This transformation requires us to prioritize spiritual growth over worldly gain, finding joy in pleasing the one who truly knows our hearts rather than striving to fit into the ever-changing standards of society. Living free from the need for approval allows us to embrace authenticity. Without the weight of external expectations, we can be true to ourselves, expressing our unique gifts, perspectives, and values without fear of judgment. This authenticity is a powerful witness to those around us, demonstrating the courage it takes to live by faith rather than fear. In a world that often pressures us to conform, choosing to live authentically is a radical act of faith, one that speaks to the strength and freedom found in God's love. With this freedom comes a renewed sense of purpose. When we are no longer seeking approval, we are free to pursue what is meaningful and lasting. Our goals are no longer shaped by what others think we should achieve, but by what God has called us to do. This clarity of purpose brings a sense of peace and direction, allowing us to invest our energy into endeavors that align with our values and convictions. Rather than wasting time and effort on superficial pursuits, we focus on the work that truly matters, knowing that our lives have eternal significance. Freedom from the need for worldly approval also protects us from the dangers of comparison. When we seek validation from others, we inevitably compare ourselves to them, measuring our worth by how we stack up against their accomplishments, appearances, or possessions. This comparison breeds envy, insecurity, and discontentment, robbing us of the joy and peace that come from being content in God's love. By releasing this need for approval, we let go of comparison, allowing ourselves to celebrate our own journey and the unique path that God has set before us. Another blessing of this freedom is resilience in the face of criticism and rejection. When we are not dependent on others' approval, we are less affected by their disapproval. Criticism, while often painful, does not shake us because our sense of self is rooted in God's love and purpose. This resilience allows us to remain steadfast in our convictions, even when others misunderstand or oppose us. Rather than being swayed by others' opinions, we stand firm in our beliefs, knowing that our identity and value are secure in God's eyes. This journey toward freedom also deepens our relationships, as we are no longer seeking approval from others, but are instead able to love them selflessly. When our self-worth is no longer dependent on others' validation, we can engage with them authentically, without hidden agendas or the need for reciprocation. This allows us to serve and support others out of genuine care, rather than seeking to win their favor. As a result, our relationships become stronger, grounded in mutual respect and trust rather than performance or expectation. Freedom from the need for approval also allows us to experience true peace. When we are constantly seeking validation, we live in a state of anxiety, always wondering if we measure up or if we are enough. This cycle of striving and self-doubt is exhausting, leaving us weary and unfulfilled. However, when we let go of this need, we find peace in the assurance that we are loved and accepted by God just as we are. This peace is a gift, a reminder that we do not need to prove our worth but can rest in the security of God's grace. Ultimately, freedom from the need for worldly approval draws us closer to God, deepening our reliance on His guidance and wisdom. When we stop looking to others for validation, we create space to listen to God's voice, to seek His will, and to trust in His plan. This dependence on God strengthens our faith, reminding us that our worth and purpose are found in Him alone. As we grow in this freedom, we become a living testimony of God's love and grace, showing others that true fulfillment comes not from the world's approval but from a life rooted in faith. Unwavering faith is a steadfast anchor, a resilience in the soul that does not waver in the storms of life. It's not merely belief in times of ease or confidence when things are going well, but it's a firm, unshakable trust in God's promises, even when circumstances seem grim. This kind of faith endures trials, forges strength through adversity, and becomes brighter when tested. Unwavering faith holds tightly to God's character and remains assured that His goodness and sovereignty are constant, regardless of what we face. This faith is not based on feelings which can come and go, but on a deep-seated conviction in the truth of God's Word. Feelings are like waves that ebb and flow, but faith stands upon the rock that cannot be moved. It is rooted in knowing that God's promises are unbreakable, that He who began a good work in us will carry it on to completion. Unwavering faith allows us to rest in the certainty that God's timing is perfect, and that He is working all things together for good for those who love Him. Unwavering faith gives us the strength to wait with patience. It holds fast even when we do not see the immediate fruit of our prayers, even when hope seems distant. This kind of faith remembers that God sees the end from the beginning, and while we may not understand His ways, we can trust His heart. Patience in faith means surrendering our need for control and accepting that God's ways are higher, trusting that He is working in ways beyond what we can imagine. With unwavering faith, we can also face rejection, criticism, and hardship with resilience. It teaches us that our identity is not rooted in what others think of us or in the approval of the world. Rather, our foundation is in God's unchanging love for us. This faith allows us to endure trials with the assurance that God is refining and strengthening us, using each challenge to draw us closer to Him and to prepare us for greater purposes. Unwavering faith brings courage in times of fear. When the world is shaken and the future seems uncertain, this faith provides a calm assurance that God is still in control. It strengthens us to face challenges with a quiet confidence, knowing that the One who holds the universe also holds our lives. Faith does not deny the existence of fear, but it confronts it with the truth of God's presence, reminding us that His perfect love casts out fear. Moreover, unwavering faith shapes our perspective on eternity. It keeps our eyes fixed on the lasting kingdom rather than the temporary world. In this world, where many things vie for our attention, faith helps us focus on what truly matters, the hope of eternal life with God. It reminds us that our true citizenship is in heaven, and that our ultimate hope is not in earthly success or comfort, but in the promise of eternal joy with him.